Hello, everybody. All I can say is I've been really lucky along my journey with Panchamda because my dad, P. L. Raj, who has been a choreographer, so Sholay, Sargam, Dawn, all those films, one day when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, he took me to meet S.D. Burman. So I was this kid, and then, senior Burman called out, Pancham, and then one guy walked in with glasses, these soda water bottle glasses. And I was the kid, and my dad spoke. He introduced him to my dad, and I was just a bystand guy. And that's the first time I saw him, met him. Years later, as I grew up, when I must have been like 9, 10, 11, I would go to his house when they were composing, and I would sit with my dad, and I was like that, again, offside guy. But I was really interested in recording, so they would be recording all the compositions as they were arranging, composing. So I was just really interested, and so of course he knew me, and then later on I became a professional musician, and then I got to play for him, and I had one super moment where about 40, 50, 60 musicians used to play together at that time, so I was one more musician, and there was a chai break generally about 11 o'clock, and that day everybody moved out of the studio, and I was just sitting with my guitar, and I had composed some piece, I was still going on in my head, and there was no one in the studio, and as I kept playing that piece, suddenly the piano started playing the same piece, trying to figure out what the notes are, and I said, oh, somebody's behind the piano trying to figure my composition out. And then he got it, and then he stood up, and then I saw Panchamda. He was sitting there and just looked at me and says, super. And wow, what a shot in my arm, as a composer, when he tells you superb. And what, I must have been 18, 19 at that time. And then years later, so then I played for him, and then years later, to be told that he had just passed away, and then he had apparently, he wanted to do all his music for the next generation, and he had told Asha ji that he wants to do it with me. Leslie के साथ काम करके मुझे मेरा ही music एक नई generation के लिए करना है. And I was shocked. I said, of all the people in the world, why me? He could have chosen anybody. But he had just passed away, and Asha ji asked me, तुम करोगे क्या? I said, where's the question of saying no? So that's how Rahul and I came out, and that was my tribute to Panchamda and Asha ji, of course. And so all I can say is I've been one of the luckiest kids in town, and I'm still lucky because, like Shibani says, when we perform, there's always some R.D. Burman song somewhere there pushing the audience today, 2018. So it's still rocking. Thank you.
Like Leslie, I'm sure most of us have not been fortunate of having met Panchamda or spending time with him. But I think I've been very lucky that because of my familial proximity with the Mangeshkar family, and specifically Asha Bhosle ji, I have lived a lot of Panchamda through Asha ji, because every time I meet with her, and I meet with her very often, and we're dining or we're just traveling the country doing something, she gives me stories galore of what she has learned from Asha, from Panchamda. And I have seen that, I think one of us mentioned that, of course, he's musically a god and a musical genius and whatever else, but myself being a student of management, I think Panchamda was a god of management as well. Because I'll just tell you one instance, and then there are stories galore which could be shared later. But when I was doing my first film called Page 3, I sent a song to Asha ji, who was in San Francisco in 2002, when internet was not all that, it wasn't the way it is today. And I wrote a mail to her saying, I would like you to sing it. I'm sending you the files. So she immediately called me from there and said, okay, I'm singing it, but it's going to be for the first time but there's going to be no composer, no lyricist, nobody around me, So she sang it and she sent it back to me, and when she came back to India from San Francisco, she said कि मैंने इसलिए गाया तुम्हारा गाना because मुझे पंचम ने कहा था कि if you don't shape up, you will ship out. कि वक्त के साथ अगर आप आगे नहीं चले, because she said when the first time musicians के साथ गाना खत्म हुआ था और वो हेडफोन शुरू हुआ था और मेल सिंगर पहले गा रहा है, फीमेल बाद में गा रही, तो Panchamda had told her that if you don't acclimatize yourself with the changing environment, you will be out of business. So she said that thing is stuck in my head. So, this is just one of the things, but there are millions of things that I've heard from the horse's mouth, because who better than Ashaji would actually say multiple stories and how true the person was to his job and to his craft, that he would play a tune to her and then she would get excited and then he would tell her, no, it's not you, it's Lataji who's going to sing it tomorrow morning. So it just shows how true a person could be to one's craft. So I think there are a lot of managerial things that one needs to learn, like Shantanu said, ki someone in him must be selling that tune or that whole craft or that whole 5 minute of madness, which is very difficult for most of us, which is why I think we all fail in some manner, but I think Dada really succeeded, so hats off.
This works. I never met Panchamda. I never even worked with him. But he introduced me to sex. Think of it, the year was 1991 and my parents had got tickets for a film called Karwa, and that was running at the Shalimar Cinema. And I went there. And it was this wonderful cinema with a fountain in the lobby, and I think it was the first time from the sheltered enclave that Cuff Parade is, we went to Grand Road to see a movie, and the movie was Karma. And suddenly there was Helen, and she was doing Piya Tu Ab To Aaja, and my eyes fell out. And then suddenly 2 reels later there was Aruna Irani doing Charti Jawani. 2 reels later, Asha Parekh with a lampshade on her head said, "Kaisi phasi." And I went home wondering what had hit me. It was 91, I was a child. And I was in love with all these 3 ladies. It was only 2 weeks later when we went to the Liberty Cinema for the premiere of a film called Aagale Lag Ja, where Sharmila Tagore in orange harem pants did Vada Karo Nahi Chodogi, and I said, she's copying Helen, yeah. And then a week later there was Rampur Ka Lakshman and there was Padma Khanna doing, and then I had to connect the dots and I said, it's all the same person doing the music. And though I thought I was in love with Helen and Padma Khanna and Sharmila Tagore and Asha Parekh, actually I fell in love with R.D. Burman. And the moment I saw R.D. Burman on the poster, I used to go and see the film. All of them. I didn't like Gulzar so much, he didn't allow him to use the drums. I said, what is he doing here? Why aren't we doing things that we can do? But there were gems. I went to see, my father finally said, boss, you go and see movies. We see one a month. This business of seeing one film every week, we can't do. So I went by myself and sat in the stalls at Roxy Cinema and I saw R.D. Burman's, the only film with Devanand and Sharmila Tagore. It was called Ye Gulista Hamara. And there was wonderful music and nobody's heard of the film. And I still listen to it even today. I'm lucky that I got that legacy. I'm lucky that, I'm very unlucky that I didn't work with Panchamda, but I think the musical legacy that I got in 1971, 72 onwards kept me instead, whether it was Patthar Ke Phool, whether it was Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman, whether it was Dil Vil Pyar Vyar, which was a tribute to R.D. Burman, whether it was even my English film, Everybody Says I'm Fine, where I went all the way to San Francisco and blackmailed Carlos Santana to play the lead guitar in the title song without charging me money for it. I think I was truly blessed, and I think all of us are truly blessed. I think it is a pity that I can't remember any of the songs from any of the films this year or last year, but I can remember every song in every single R.D. Burman movie, and that's 5,000 plus songs. So you can imagine how amazing this man must have been. Thank you, R.D. Burman, and thank you, Brahmanand, for everything that you're doing. This is not our legacy. This is something that 50 years later our grandchildren will be hearing. And that is truly what makes a legacy in you. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My introduction to Panchamda was as a listener, as a child. And the one thing that really struck me most, song after song after song, was the catch he had. I mean, he could make a melody groove, and he could make the groove melodic. And he had a way of combining both of these elements in a way and marry them with each other in the most perfect way. So when you're listening to a song, if you listen minutely, there are many, many different things that are happening in the song. But if you sit and study that, it gets into very complex forms and very complicated stuff. But as a piece of music, as a song, it just breezes through you. And the second thing that struck me was that when you hear a Panchamda song, you hear the environment. Every time, this was like when I was a kid, 71, 72, 73. Every time I heard a song, there used to be Vivid Bharati back then, and we used to hear the song, and I used to kind of imagine, oh, there must be this happening, there must be a hero and a heroine, and they must be dancing in the mountains, or it must be very cold. You know, you have a certain visualization when you hear a piece of music. And every time I would, if I happened to see the film, it was exactly the way I had almost, 19-20 ka farak hota tha, but exactly very close to how I had visualized it. So he had a way of bringing in the environment somehow, work the music around it in such a way that it was not just a piece of song or just a piece of music. There was a lot more going on there, which made you feel the song in a way where it must be said. There was only one place where I think I kind of made a mistake there. There was one song which I loved, and I thought the guy singing that must be somebody who was sitting outside a dargah and singing the song, and the hero must be on the road, heartbroken and walking all over the place. But many years later, when I actually saw the visuals of that particular song, it just turned out to be, excuse my memory, but yeah, there was this song, it turned out to be a song where a guy is singing on the stage, and there's no heroine, but there's Amitabh Bachchan in the movie, and it's from a movie called Benam, and the song is called Yara O Yara. Yeah, so that was the only place where my visualization went a little awry, but that was the those were the visuals I had when I first heard that song. So I mean, there are so many things. I mean, anything I say about Panchamda would really be very small, because there are many people who know much more about him and his music, and Brahma, of course, is saying it. One thing I must say about Brahma is, I think what he's done is phenomenal, and phenomenal for the reason that he is doing, like he was telling me some time back, he was doing something that maybe Panchamda's son would have done what he was doing. But I said I would add to it, what you're doing is not what Panchamda's son would have done, but because he wouldn't have been able to give the kind of objective perspective to Panchamda, the person, the human being, and the musician, that you, not being his son, are able to give. And another very beautiful thing about Brahma's documentaries is that there is no voiceover, there is nobody narrating anything. The entire story and the perspectives is interwoven completely through what people who knew Panchamda and people who know his music, that's the thread of weaving is coming from the spoken words of the people he has talked to. So that gives a completely, it doesn't lead you on the way a voiceover would lead you on to believe something. It's open for you to interpret what you want to. And I think I'll cut this now. There's just one thing I would say. What the documentary and the series that he's basically satiating our curiosity of Panchamda. We've heard his music. We want to know more about him, his personal life, the person that he was, the human being that he was, his interactions with people, his relationships with people. How did his mind work? How did it function? Why was he the way he was? There is a certain curiosity, and that curiosity Brahma is fulfilling. He's doing what we all would have loved to do but couldn't. But he's taken those extra steps to do that. Ultimately, I think the one great realization we all have from watching Panchamda's documentaries is that we are all human and we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Not us, not the people we live with. And sometimes we feel it is much easier to walk away from a problem than stay put there and bear with it. And we expect that out of other people, but life doesn't work that way. So there is something a lot more personal, at a very personal level. There's something you can take away from the life of Panchamda. That's the way, as Brahma says, that's the way life is. There is no other way it will be. You have to just take it as it comes. And there are many lessons to be learned from all of this. So Brahma, thank you very much for this, and I'm looking forward to this web series that you're coming up with. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening, everyone here. It's my honor and privilege to be sharing the stage with such distinguished music directors, composers, and Vivek Vaswani, who's a friend. First of all, I would like to compliment Brahmanand Singh for having taken the initiative 10 years ago and made such a beautiful documentary.